Good morning, scholars, and welcome back to Learning with Mrs. Prevey. Today's lesson is Frontier Explorers, the Louisiana Purchase, Lesson 4. And our learning goal for today is I can compare and contrast emperors and presidents. As you remember this compass rose, we have north, east, right here, south, and west. So we can remember the mnemonic, never for north, never eat soggy waffles. Ugh. Always remember north is on the top here, and then you're working like a clock, ticking this way. So we call that clockwise. Never eat soggy waffles. That'll help you remember north, east, south, and west. So right here we have the North American continent. If we come in a little closer, we can see that this part above this white line and below this white line, this is all part of the United States right here. Okay, so if we bring that in a little closer, these mountains over here on this side are the Rocky Mountains, right through here. And over on this side are the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, here's Mississippi, and you could probably see the Mississippi River. Let's see. Right there, starting there and moving its way down. Right, follow this jagged line down the Mississippi River. Right here, we definitely want to cut that out. If we follow it down, keep coming down, we will see the mouth of the Mississippi River. Where do you go? Right here. Right, that enters right here. It enters and exits right here in New Orleans, right? Okay. During the time when Thomas Jefferson was president, the United States land was all east of this Mississippi River. So everything, let's see, where's the compass rose? Everything on that side. So if this is the Mississippi River, east points that way. So everything this side. Oops, wrong way. So here's our Mississippi River. Oh, take that out. Everything that points to the east, this way, was where the United States was. Okay. If you remember the Appalachian Mountains here, you'll remember that Daniel Boone's Wilderness Road runs through where Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee come together. It's called the Cumberland Gap. And it is right about in this area here. Okay. So Daniel Boone created that so he could continue to explore west, and they went as far as the Mississippi River. This continued to displace many Native Americans already living in this area forced them to leave their homes once again and move even further west. So as they pushed westward, the Native Americans were forced out of there. So in the read aloud you heard last time, New Orleans, in the area west of the Mississippi, this is the Mississippi River right here, this area was not a part of the United States at that time. So remember, where this read aloud was taking place. Well, let's remember President Jefferson wanted to buy New Orleans from Napoleon and France, to help, to make sure that the Americans could get across the river, because they were thinking that they would not be able to use the river if France ever got upset with them. So if we come over here, we can remember that France is right here. It's pretty close to Spain and Portugal, right? And if we can think back even further, we can remember that Europe is right in this area, and this is where the first settlers came from. The Pilgrims had came from Europe, and they went to Plymouth Rock. And then Napoleon was in France. Napoleon owned France owned most of the land that was on the other side of the Mississippi River. So they wanted to buy that river, they wanted to buy New Orleans from France so he can control the Mississippi River. And this river was so important to help move goods along the river to the ocean, and then to other people that wanted to buy those goods. So it was really convenient. It was much faster than walking or horseback riding. So I'm trying to remember, who was it that Jefferson decided to send to France to talk to Napoleon? Let's see. Let's think about this. Oh, right. It was his friend James Monroe. So if we look here, this is definitely not the right page. There we go. So he wanted to send his friend Monroe. Let's see. This right here. I remember Thomas Jefferson was sitting in his robe and his slippers, and James Monroe right there. Oops. All right. Here he is, James Monroe. Okay. How was it that the Pilgrims and other English settlers first came to North America? How did they get there? How did they arrive there? Let's take a look at that. And we can see over here is where Europe is, and they came by ships. Remember, there were 3 boats. I'm trying to remember. I think that journey, it took 66 days, and that's a really long time for the Mayflower. And how happy do you think the Pilgrims were when they finally reached land? Oh, I'll bet they were so happy. So the setting of today's read aloud, or where it takes place, is actually in France, which is right here. So where this takes place is in France. This is where James Monroe traveled in order to talk to Napoleon. Okay? In order for James Monroe to travel from the United States to France, he had to travel by boat, which could take a few weeks or even a whole month. So if you wanted to go from the United States to France, You probably would leave from one of these port locations. You could leave from the mouth of the New Orleans River there. But then if you did, you would have to go down around Florida and then come up, and you would probably end up over here for France. Let's see, right there. You would want to land. I don't know. I suppose you could go through here, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay? All right. So you need to listen to find out if James Monroe is able to buy that city of New Orleans from Napoleon for the United States. We need to find out, did he get that land? Let me see about moving this to a more convenient location. There we go. Just let me James Monroe sat at a desk in his hotel room in France. Monroe had been sent to France by the President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. Remember, France owned the city of New Orleans, which was near the place where the mighty Mississippi River flowed into the sea. So what do we call that area where the river flows into the sea? We call that the mouth of the river. Okay. Whoever controlled New Orleans decided which ships passed up and down the river. The land on the east side of the river was owned by the United States. The land on the west side of the river was owned by France. So right here, all this orange part right now was owned by the United States, but the green part on this map was all owned by France. President Jefferson had told James Monroe, I want you to go to France and offer to purchase or buy the city of New Orleans from Napoleon. Napoleon needs money to buy supplies for soldiers and sailors who are fighting a series of wars. If he will sell New Orleans to us, he will receive the money he needs, and we will gain control of the Mississippi River. James Monroe met with Napoleon in the French Emperor's palace in Paris, France. This palace was very different from the house in which President Thomas Jefferson lived in Washington, D.C. Now, as James Monroe looked back on his meeting with both President Jefferson and the French Emperor Napoleon, Monroe thought President Jefferson's home clearly is different from Napoleon's home. Napoleon lives in a grand palace with wooden floors, half covered in thick carpets. The walls are bright with expensive wallpapers, and the furniture probably cost a lot of money. When Napoleon is dressed in the fanciest clothes, he sits on that throne. He talks and everyone else listens because they are afraid of his power, because they hope he will do favors for them. Napoleon was an emperor. He had powers like a king. But there were no thrones for Thomas Jefferson and no royal uniforms to make him look special. Sometimes visitors to the president's mansion or large home don't even recognize President Jefferson. They think he's one of the servants until they are introduced to him. When he starts to speak, however, everyone listens, but not because they're afraid of him. They listen because he's a brilliant man with wonderful ideas. Monroe thinks that the president is very smart. He doesn't need thrones or royal robes in order for people to realize that he is a great man. So let's think about how emperors and presidents are different. You see, the emperor was really, he's right here in this picture, he's in this throne. He was really much different than a president. Um, he was very flashy, which he wore a lot of very expensive clothing, and he had very expensive homes, and people were wanting him to do favors. Where the president, though, he wore like more just business type attire, and he lived in a regular house like a regular person. This is Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, so how does this picture look different than this picture? So he looks like he's a well-educated man, right? Kind of dignified, well-educated. This man looks more like a military person, you know. He looks older. This man clearly looks younger, and more stern. He looks more stern. I'm trying to think if I were going to meet one, I think I would rather choose the president over this more authoritative position, this Napoleon emperor. Well, James Monroe thought, I suppose I should be fair. Napoleon may not be my sort of person, but he's very clever once you are talking seriously with him, and he's about to do a great favor for the United States. So clever means smart or able to solve problems quickly. Well, let's see. There's Napoleon. And there's Thomas Jefferson. I see Napoleon here with his two security guards, and right here I see Thomas Jefferson. He looks more like a regular person. Okay. Monroe remembered his last meeting with Napoleon, during which Napoleon had told Monroe, I've thought over your president's offer to buy the city of New Orleans. I've decided that selling New Orleans to the United States of America will not bring me as much money as I need. Instead, I will sell you New Orleans and all the lands owned by France between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains, which is called the Louisiana Territory. So all this green area, okay? It's a very large area. We will sell this land to you at a fair price. Did Napoleon just want to sell just New Orleans? No. He wanted to sell all of this land. Hearing this, Monroe realized with a shock that this is as much land as there is already in the entire United States of America. Overnight, we would have a nation twice as big as it is right now. Do you think that Monroe was excited or disappointed by Napoleon's suggestion? I better reread that. Hearing this, Monroe realized with a shock, that is as much land as there is already in the entire United States of America. Overnight, we could have a nation twice as big as it is right now. How do you think the Native Americans are going to feel about that? Somehow, Monroe had kept himself calm enough to answer Napoleon. Your Majesty, this is indeed a marvelous opportunity. I cannot accept your offer, however, until I present it to President Jefferson and receive his answer. I'll write to him at once. In Monroe's time, there were no phones or emails, so Monroe had to write letters to Jefferson. Here, the word letter means a written message to someone. The word letter also has other meanings. The word letter can also mean one of the symbols in the alphabet, like a B or a C or a D. Okay? The letter would have to travel over the ocean in the same kind of ship that Monroe had traveled on when he first came to France. It would take a few weeks for Jefferson to get Monroe's letter, and even longer for Monroe to get Jefferson's answer. Now, sitting in his hotel room and remembering all of this, James Monroe picked up his pen. I need to finish my letter to President Jefferson, he thought, and then I can send it to him by the first ship sailing across the ocean to the United States. When he reads it, the president is going to be very surprised. Why did Monroe think that Jefferson would be surprised? Well, he sent him just to purchase just the city of New Orleans. Instead, he's purchasing the entire green area, the whole West almost. Just as Monroe had expected, Thomas Jefferson was amazed when he read the letter. Jefferson thought, this is even better than I could have imagined. Not only will we be buying the city of New Orleans, but also the entire Louisiana territory. The United States will double in size. I will write back to James Monroe at once, telling him to purchase the Louisiana territory for the United States. He smiled. The timing could not be better. When President Jefferson picked up his pen, began the letter instructing Monroe to seal the bargain with France, a bargain that would double the size of the United States of America. Seal the bargain means that Jefferson wanted Monroe to accept Napoleon's offer to buy the Louisiana territory. When the United States bought the Louisiana territory from France, it was called the Louisiana Purchase. Who did James Monroe meet in France in order to discuss the purchase of the New Orleans? Right, James Monroe met with Napoleon to discuss the purchase of New Orleans. Was James Monroe able to buy the city of New Orleans from Napoleon? Yes, James Monroe was able to buy the entire city of New Orleans from Napoleon. What else did Napoleon sell to the United States? He sold the Louisiana territory to the United States. Let's look up here. It's the same map. So go ahead and point to the area of land called the Louisiana Territory, which the United States bought from France. So, right, it's all of this green area. That's all of what they purchased. What was the Louisiana Purchase? Well, the Louisiana Purchase was the land called the Louisiana Territory that the United States bought from France. Was the Louisiana Territory a lot of land or a little bit of land? It was a lot of land. How do you know? Well, the United States was just this orange, and literally overnight it became all this green and all this orange area. So that's a lot. It's doubled. In the read aloud, you heard that Thomas Jefferson say, I want you to go to France and offer to purchase the city of New Orleans from Napoleon. Say the word purchase. When you purchase something, you buy it. Jeremy went to the grocery store to purchase milk for his cereal. I wonder what kind of things you would purchase at the grocery store. Go ahead and pause the video and talk about the things that you would purchase. Make sure you use the word purchase and a complete sentence. Oh, did you pause the video? I'm going to bet that you said something like, well, I would purchase potato chips if I was going to the store. Or I would purchase a new game if I was going to the store. Right? Let's take a look at this page. All right. In the read aloud you heard, in Monroe's time, there was no phone or email, so Monroe had to write a letter to Jefferson. The letter would have to travel over the ocean in the same kind of ship that Monroe had traveled on when he first came to France. It would take a few weeks for Jefferson to get Monroe's letter, and even longer for Monroe to get Jefferson's answer. So that is this kind of letter right here in this picture. Okay. A letter can also mean something else. Letter also means a symbol of the alphabet, as in the ABCs. So this one, number 2 right here, is that kind of letter. Put to letter as, wait a minute. I'm going to think which kind of letter I can think about when I answer this question. When I see this kind of letter, I think of pen pals and the mail. Go ahead and hold up either a 1 for this one or a 2. I hope you held up on number 1 for this one. Okay, now we're going to do another one. When I see this kind of letter, I think of the ABCs. Is that this kind of letter or this kind of letter? I hope you said it was number 2. Okay. When Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Territory, the United States became much bigger. So today we worked on lesson 4. The Louisiana Purchase is what we're learning about. Our learning goal was, I can compare and contrast emperors and presidents. Think about that for a minute. Go talk to a parent about how emperors and presidents are different. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow when we learn about Lewis and Clark.